He shuffled down the narrow aisle of Flight 237 with a tattered duffel bag clutched in his hands. Like a lifeline, his movements were slow and deliberate, not just because of age, but because the world no longer moved at his pace. People barely noticed him anymore, except to sigh when he held up the line. The air inside the cabin was stiff with impatience, the kind of tension that clung to budget airline flights running 30 minutes late out of O'Hare. Flight attendants gave half-smiles. Overhead bins were already full, and everyone was just trying to sit down and disappear into their devices. Row 18. That's what his boarding pass said. He stopped beside the seat and squinted, double-checking. A woman with perfectly straight blonde hair sat by the window, scrolling on her phone, earbuds in. Her eyes didn't lift when he spoke. "Excuse me, I believe I'm in that seat, 18A. She didn't look up, just gestured vaguely and said, "I don't think so." He double-checked the overhead bin. Nothing personal. Nothing labeled. No sign she'd staked a claim. "I'm pretty sure this is mine," he said again, softer, his voice hoarse from age and disuse. That was when the flight attendant came over, tall, stern, and radiating that uniquely corporate cheerfulness that meant, "I've had it with today already." "What seems to be the issue here?" The old man lifted his pass. "I think I'm in 18A. She says." The attendant cut him off. "Sir, please step out of the aisle. You're holding up boarding." Yes, of course." He tried to maneuver backward, bumping a businessman's knee. Sorry. "Let me see your pass," the attendant said, reaching out and plucking it from his hand before he could react. 18A, she read. "Ma'am, you're in his seat." The woman shrugged without removing her earbuds. "I already sat down. He can take the middle." The attendant looked from the woman to the old man, clearly not interested in pushing the issue. "Sir, would you mind just taking 18B? Let's not make this a whole thing." He paused, visibly confused. Well, I suppose that's fine." The attendant gave a tight smile and moved on before he even sat down. 3 rows back, a man in a gray hoodie lowered his tray table and placed his phone on. Recording. He wasn't live streaming. This wasn't for show. He was watching, because he'd seen this before, and he had a reason to care. The old man, Colonel Daniel Matthews, though no one here would know that, settled into the middle seat like a ghost. His knees bumped the seat in front of him. The woman by the window never acknowledged his presence again. Her elbow claimed the armrest. Her coat grazed his side. As the plane taxied, he coughed softly into his sleeve. No one looked. The safety briefing started. He folded his hands and listened quietly, though he had probably flown more miles in military aircraft than this entire cabin combined. The plane took off. A few rows behind, the man in the hoodie leaned back, but kept the camera steady, pointed toward 18A and B. Mid-flight, the old man tried to flag the attendant again. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Excuse me, could I get some water?" She was already moving past. She didn't hear or didn't care. He tried again. "Miss? Water." The woman turned halfway, sighed, and said, "Can you please stop talking to me?" The words hit like a slap. He blinked and looked away. His hand fell back into his lap. His lips didn't move again. 30 minutes later, he stood slowly to stretch. His knees creaked, and he leaned on the seat in front of him for balance. From across the aisle, the same attendant appeared. Face sharp, voice sharper. "Sir, you need to sit down. Now." He turned, startled. "I'm sorry, I just needed to. You're being disruptive. Take your seat." People were watching now, earbuds tugged out, eyes glancing sideways. The woman beside him sighed dramatically and turned away. The old man nodded apologetically and sat back down, more cramped than before. The flight landed without further incident. Or so it would seem. People stood. Overhead bins were flung open. Luggage was yanked free with elbows and passive-aggressive muttering. Colonel Matthews reached for his duffel bag. His hand shook slightly. The strap tangled on. Another bag. He struggled. The flight attendant stood 5 feet away, arms folded, staring. She didn't move to help. That's when the man in the hoodie stepped forward. "Need a hand, sir?" Colonel Matthews looked up, startled by the kindness. Thank you." The man lifted the bag and handed it to him carefully. "It's no trouble." As they stood in the aisle together, the old man gave a small smile. "I appreciate it. Not many people notice me these days." "Oh, I noticed," the man said. "Colonel." The attendant's head jerked up. "What did you just call him?" The man looked her square in the eye as he pulled back his hood. Clean cut, late 30s, sharp eyes. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a laminated ID badge. "James Caldwell, Regional Director of Operations. I helped hire your station supervisor. Been watching the last 3 hours closely." The attendant paled. "This man," James said, gesturing to Colonel Matthews, "is retired Air Force Colonel Daniel Matthews, 2 distinguished flying crosses, served in 4 combat zones. He's earned the right to sit anywhere on this plane and be treated with respect." The cabin was silent now. Even the passengers who usually rushed off paused. "You humiliated him. You ignored him. You mocked him." James's voice didn't rise, but it was ironclad. "You'll be hearing from HR. And from me." The attendant stammered. "I didn't know." "That's the problem," James snapped. "You only care when you do know." Colonel Matthews exited the plane quietly. He said nothing more, but James walked beside him, holding the bag like it was made of glass. Outside the terminal, a man in a suit was waiting, nervous, pale. "Sir, we have a situation." James's face hardened. "What kind?" The man leaned in. "There's a video leak from another flight. It's going viral." James didn't blink. "Who?" The man showed him the phone. James stared at the screen. His stomach dropped. "This one. It's the pilot." The terminal hummed with its usual noise. Suitcases thumping, intercoms crackling, tired. Voices asking for connections. But for James Caldwell, Regional Director of Operations, the sound had changed. Beneath the surface, there was a buzz of something deeper. Something cracking. He walked beside Thomas Griggs from Public Relations, who had been waiting outside Gate 19, with a phone in one hand and panic clinging to his skin like sweat. "You need to see this," Thomas said, voice low. James took the phone. A video was already playing. A pilot in full uniform, tan face, salt and pepper hair, stood at the gate podium, red-faced and shouting. A couple stood nearby, the mother shielding a boy whose hands flapped rapidly as he cried. People stared. The pilot's voice rose over the commotion. "If your kid can't behave like the rest of us, maybe he shouldn't be flying at all." A shocked gasp could be heard in the background. A woman murmured, "Did he just say that?" James froze mid-stride. "Is this Lansing?" he asked coldly. Thomas nodded. "Captain Roy Lansing, 23 years with us. Training officer, PR face, award winner, until today." James watched the rest of the video in silence. It ended with Lansing storming away, ignoring the family's stunned expressions and the growing murmur around him. The video already had 128,000 views. The caption, "Wings of Cruelty, Part 2, another anonymous upload. Same watermark, Passenger 0. "Where's Roy now?" James asked. "Gate 12, secured. We got him off the line." "Good. Let's go." The walk to Gate 12 was quiet, but James's mind was anything but. He replayed the scenes. Over and over, the old man in row 18, the family with the autistic child. Different faces, same cruelty. The problem wasn't isolated. The system wasn't broken. It was functioning exactly as it had been built, to serve convenience and protect profit. And now the walls were cracking. Inside Gate 12, the air was heavy with tension. Airport security officers stood just outside the crew lounge. Inside, pacing like a tiger too big for its cage, was Captain Roy Lansing. James walked in alone, shut the door behind him, Roy looked up, shoulders squared. Caldwell. James nodded. You want to talk? Roy snorted. Here to lecture me too? No lectures. Just truth. Did you say it? Roy's jaw flexed. They were trying to board before the wheelchair passengers. Kid was screaming. It was chaos. I told them to wait. And then, Roy hesitated. James stepped forward. Did you threaten to remove them? Roy folded his arms. I said what needed to be said. You weren't there. I've seen the footage. I was exactly there. Roy's voice rose. That kid was a distraction. Dangerous. I'm responsible for hundreds of lives. Every flight. And you think that gives you the right to humiliate a family with a disabled child? They were making a scene. James held up his phone, thumb poised over the screen. This is the scene. And the world's watching it now. The pilot looked away. James lowered the phone. You think the uniform protects you, but today it just became evidence. There was a knock. Daniel from compliance poked his head in, his face pale. Sir, there's more. James turned, pulse spiking. Another video. New terminal. New incident. James raised a brow. More firm customer service? Daniel swallowed. Worse. It's your niece. James froze. What? Someone recorded her. She was in plainclothes, helping clean up a drink spill near Gate 7. Gate agent called her trash. Had no idea who she was. James's jaw clenched. She was undercover? She went in on her own. Never broke character. But someone else filmed it. He held up his phone. There she was, Amelia Caldwell, wearing a janitor's polo and slacks, crouched beside a crying child, mopping soda from the floor. The gate agent stood nearby, shaking her head, saying, You're just the help. Clean it up and move. James closed his eyes. How bad is it? Everywhere. They're calling it the janitor girl incident. The caption, This is how they treat their own. When they don't know who's watching. Passenger 0 again. James's voice dropped to a whisper. She wasn't authorized. She did it anyway, Daniel said. She saw what was happening, and she decided to go inside. James looked down. I didn't know, he muttered. She just went in. Daniel stepped closer, his voice shaking. Sir, I don't think this is random. I think you're being targeted. Across the airport, a teenage girl sat near a fountain, scrolling. She watched the pilot video, then the janitor footage. Her fingers trembled with nervous energy. Across the terminal, a man in a dark suit nodded subtly. She hit upload. Back at gate 12, James's phone buzzed. Another alert. Another video. This one showed the flight attendant again, the same one who humiliated Colonel Matthews, now caught on a layover verbally mocking a disabled passenger on a shuttle bus. She didn't know she was being recorded. 3 angles. Same watermark. Passenger 0. James's pulse pounded. A final message popped up on his screen, untraceable. You've built a house of mirrors. We're about to show the world what's behind the glass. Watch gate 7. Clock's ticking. James's stomach turned to stone. He turned to Daniel. Where is my niece right now? Daniel blinked. She was last seen at Gate 7. James didn't wait. He was already running. Gate 7 was oddly quiet. Too quiet. The usual noise of pre-boarding chaos wasn't there. No agents behind the desk. No crew in sight. Just a few scattered passengers watching the screen with wide eyes. James pushed through them. The monitor didn't show flight updates. It was playing a video. His heart dropped. It was Amelia, in full janitor uniform, scrubbing a stained carpet beside a young boy eating crackers. A man in a badge and clipboard approached, barking orders. Don't use those rags on the carpet. Are you slow? Amelia didn't react. She kept her head down. Look at me when I talk to you, the man snapped. Amelia finally looked up and smiled. The screen froze, then cut to a black background. One line appeared in bold white letters. Every seat deserves respect, even if you don't know who's sitting in it. Then the passenger zero watermark glowed at the bottom corner. James stood motionless, stunned. Behind him, passengers were filming him now. He turned slowly and saw Amelia standing by the bench, no longer in uniform, clean clothes, hair tied back, calm. She met his eyes. "I told you I'd find out the truth," she said. James nodded, breath catching in his throat. "You did." The fallout was instant. The pilot was grounded. The gate agent fired. The flight attendant suspended. 3 public apologies issued. Multiple lawsuits dropped overnight. And Amelia's video? Uploaded by the airline itself with her permission. It was part of a new campaign. The ground truth. Respect isn't optional. But the story wasn't over. Because that night, James received another message. Untraceable. Passenger zero. You've responded. Good. But if this is just a PR fix, we'll know. Next time, it won't be your niece we use to expose you. It'll be someone you've never met. James stared at the screen. Behind him, a man stepped off the elevator and disappeared into the terminal crowd. Clean cut, gray hoodie, camera bag over his shoulder. Watching. 3 days after the Gate 7 incident, the airport felt like a crime scene. Not one with blood, but one with questions and witnesses everywhere. The airline's corporate headquarters was swamped in damage control. Meetings stacked on top of meetings. HR scrambling. PR barely sleeping. James Caldwell hadn't left his office in 36 hours. Every news outlet had picked it up. Airline faces reckoning after Janitor video goes viral. CEO's niece goes undercover. Sparks industry-wide audit. Hashtag every seat deserves respect trends across 12 countries. But none of it felt like a win. Because the problem was bigger than one airline. And someone out there knew it. James sat at the long glass table in conference room B, looking hollow. Across from him sat 2 people. Amelia, fresh-faced but tired, and Sandra Miles, the company's legal counsel. Sandra was pinching the bridge of her nose. "So," she said finally, "we've been played." Amelia looked up. "We exposed the truth." Sandra waved a tablet. "This Passenger Zero group, who are they? They've uploaded 5 new videos. Not just us now. They're hitting other airlines, train companies, even city buses." James leaned back. "They're not terrorists. They're teachers." Sandra scoffed. "They're blowing up our brand." Amelia leaned forward. "No, we did that to ourselves. They just lit the match." James nodded slowly. "She's right." Sandra wasn't done. "And now they've posted a countdown." "What kind of countdown?" James asked. Amelia turned her laptop. On the screen, a dark website pulsed with a clock. 46 minutes and 12 seconds. Beneath it, the words, "Your company's final boarding call. We're dropping everything. Unless someone finally tells the whole truth." James stared. "What truth?" Amelia's eyes flicked to him. "Maybe it's not about you, Uncle James. Maybe it's someone else." That's when the door opened. Daniel from compliance entered, holding a folder. His hands trembled. I know who's behind Passenger Zero." 10 years earlier, a quiet office in Terminal C. A young woman in a Navy uniform sat across from 2 supervisors. Her name tag read Grace Monroe. She had just turned in a complaint, her 5th one in 6 months. She claimed she had witnessed repeated verbal abuse toward elderly passengers. She cited being told to shut up and follow orders by a senior gate agent. She included audio recordings, notes, even passenger statements. They nodded. They took her paperwork. And then they fired her for conduct unbecoming. Grace never worked in aviation again. Back in the present, Daniel placed a worn photo on the table. It was Grace Monroe, in the background of the Gate 7 Janitor video. Not front and center, just walking by. Watching. James's heart skipped. She was there. Daniel nodded. She's the founder of a non-profit now, Passenger Protection Alliance. But she disappeared from public life 2 years ago. No interviews, no events, just shadows. Sandra scoffed. "You're telling me a disgruntled former employee is behind all this?" Amelia shook her head. She's not disgruntled. She's focused. Daniel added. And she's not alone. She has a network. Former airline employees, retired, pilots, whistleblowers, even passengers. They're everywhere, documenting, waiting, uploading. James stood up. We need to talk to her. Amelia stood too. She won't come to you, but she might come to me. That night, an empty terminal after midnight, Amelia sat on a bench near the edge of the security zone. A janitor mopped nearby. No cameras, no announcements, just the hum of vending machines and distant cleaning bots. A woman approached, her steps light but certain. She wore a brown trench coat, no makeup, and her eyes looked like they hadn't slept in a year but burned with clarity. Grace Monroe. You're brave, Grace said, sitting beside her. Not many go in like that anymore. I learned from watching you, Amelia replied. A beat. You're not here to apologize, Grace said. No, I'm here to ask. What do you want? Grace turned slowly, staring at a luggage cart left abandoned by a wall. I want the world to stop treating decency like a perk. I want the lowest paid workers to be heard. I want elderly people like Colonel Matthews to be treated with the dignity they earned. And I want your uncle to stop pretending this system can fix itself with memos. Amelia's voice softened. We can change it. Together. Grace didn't look at her. We'll see. Then she stood, pulled out her phone, and hit a button. At HQ, 12:01 a.m. James's phone lit up. A live stream. Passenger Zero was broadcasting. Grace's face filled the screen, but her name was never spoken. Behind her, a collage of screenshots, text messages from fired whistleblowers, HR memos, footage of mistreated staff, pilot audio from the cockpit, mocking passengers. She spoke simply. We've shown you what it looks like from the ground. You claim to be an airline, but you forgot. You're also a people line. You carry more than luggage. You carry lives. And if you want to win, back our trust, you'll start with a single act. Reinstate every unjustly fired employee from the last 5 years, and give them their voice back. Silence. Then it cut to black. 1 week later, the boardroom was full. James stood at the head of the table. On the screen behind him, a slide deck titled The Ground Truth Initiative. He looked out at the stunned faces, executives, shareholders, directors, and said 3 words. I resign publicly. Gasped. Amelia, sitting near the door, didn't blink. James continued, I'm stepping down not because I was caught, but because I wasn't listening. My niece reminded me what integrity looks like. Grace Monroe reminded me what courage costs. He turned to the screen. And effective today, we're rehiring 78 former employees, reversing 12 wrongful terminations, and launching the first passenger staff audit task force, led by the people who've been ignored. The longest. Pause. Every seat deserves respect, starting with the people who clean them. 3 months later, a new airline promo airs on national TV. No music, just real footage. Colonel Matthews helping a nervous young woman with her carry-on. A former gate agent holding hands with a crying child. A janitor, Amelia, smiling as she walks down the aisle, now wearing a staff ID as a quality control officer. Text on screen. We stopped pretending. We started listening. Welcome aboard the Ground Truth. Passenger Zero never posted again. But their final upload was simple. A video of Grace Monroe standing at a terminal window, watching a plane take off. No face shown. Just this caption. We're not the enemy. We're the mirror.